story of Kisa Gotami and the parable of the mustard seed. A famous parable of Buddhism is called the parable of the mustard seed. It is found in the foundational text of Theravada Buddhism. It revolves around a woman named Kisa Gotami who lived during the time of Buddha's life when he had already achieved nirvana and was traveling to impart his teachings upon others. Kisa's only child, a very young son, had died. Unwilling to accept his death, she carried him from neighbor to neighbor and begged for someone to give her medicine to bring him back to life. One of her neighbors told her to go to Buddha, located nearby, and ask him if he had a way to bring her son back to life. Bringing the body of her son with her, Kisa found Buddha and pleaded with him to help bring her son back to life. He instructed her to go back to her village and gather mustard seeds from the households of those who have never been touched by the death. From those mustard seeds, he promised he would create a medicine to bring her son back to life. Relieved, she went back to her village and began asking her neighbors for mustard seeds. All of her neighbors were willing to give her mustard seeds, but they all told her that their households had been touched by death. They told her, "The living are few, but the dead are many." As the day became evening and then night, she was still without any of the mustard seeds that she had been instructed to collect. She realized then the universality of death. According to the Buddhist verse her story comes from, she said, "It's not just a truth for one village or town, nor is it a truth for a single family. But for every world settled by gods, this indeed is what is true impermanence." With this new understanding, her grief was calmed. She buried her son in the forest and then returned to Buddha. She confessed to Buddha that she could not obtain any of the mustard seeds he had instructed her to collect because she could not find even one house untouched by death. Kisa entered the first stage of enlightenment from her experience. She decided to become a disciple of Buddha's and went on to become the first female arahant. Losing a child or any dear loved one to death is a tragedy no one wants to face. When faced with such painful loss, we can feel like Kisa, with grief so unbearable that we wish for anything to make the death not be real. But as Kisa learned when she could not collect a single mustard seed, death is universal. Nearly everyone at some point in their life loses a loved one to death. This is part of the impermanence of things that Buddhism speaks of. Despite the fact that nearly all of us experience the loss of loved ones, this does not make the pain of these losses any easier to bear. How do we cope? It's different for everyone, but we typically find ways to carry on. For Kisa, it was her epiphany that she came to through the Buddha's lesson that helped her cope. It's one story among countless throughout human existence of how a person has suffered great loss and yet learned in their own way to move forward. Grief can often leave a person feeling isolated, confused, and as if they will never be able to cope. But reading stories like Kisa's show that even long, long ago, others have felt the same way, and yet they found a way through. For the griever, it's a reminder that you are never truly alone in your experience.